People who watch my live stream on Sundays know that I often have a photograph on the ground over here. It's framed, it's behind glass, so it might have glare on it, but it is the photograph that I often keep in my office or near my studio of Milo and Wolfie. So that's Wolfie, that's Milo. And so for those who don't know, at the end of every video I've got, it says, remember Milo and Wolfie. And they were two Shetland sheepdogs I had for the longest time. Got Milo first. Wolfie came along about a year later. And then I had the two of them for quite some time. And then Milo passed away. And then Wolfie passed away. And so in early videos, occasionally you see one or two of them walking by in the background. And the joke was that a lot of people thought they were cats because in the distance they looked fluffy. But interestingly, I was poking around on my computer looking for something. And now here's the problem. It used to be in the old days, you had photo albums. And you're flipping through a photo album looking for a photograph. And next thing you know, you're down a rabbit hole pulling out other photo albums and stuff. Well, with digital cameras, digital photographs are much the same way. And the problem is that they're often sorted in my computer into file folders that don't make a whole lot of sense. They may be by date. They may be by topic. They may be by all kinds of other randomness I don't even understand. And so I was looking for a particular photograph. I never found it, but I ran across a file folder that struck me as very interesting. And the reason it's interesting is I've now got, I don't know how many cameras I've got. If you count all the digital cameras, I've got like the GoPros and not even counting my phone and the one I'm speaking into right now. And I've got a bunch of big Nikon DSLRs. I've got all kinds of cameras, but the first nice digital camera I ever bought was a Nikon. Bought a big old Nikon that I could put my Nikon lenses in on that came off my Nikon film cameras. And I had this Nikon digital camera. I forgot what number it was, but it was one of the earliest digital Nikon big cameras. And this would have been about 2008. 2008. And interestingly, when you buy a camera like that and you start using it, it starts numbering from 1. And so I actually know that the first day I had it, the first day I took it out and was taking pictures with it, I actually went to a museum with some friends of mine. I'd never been to that museum before, so I brought my camera, shot a whole bunch of pictures that day, and the 81st picture I shot with that camera, starting on day 1, was this photograph right here. I'll put a better picture of this up on camera so that you can see it better. But the interesting thing about this is I eventually would shoot probably hundreds, if not thousands of photographs of Milo and or Wolfie over the years because they're running around playing, they're doing whatever they're doing. You take a picture, you got a camera, or later you got your cell phone in your hands, you take a picture. Okay? I got tons of photographs of these two, okay? Separate and together. But I'm going to tell you right now that of all the photographs I've ever taken in my entire life, if you said, Steve, you've got to have the pantheon, the top 10 photographs you have taken yourself, okay? The top 10 photographs that you've taken yourself. Not in any particular order, because we can't always do that. Our photographs can be like our children. But I would tell you that I honestly think this right here would be in that list of photographs that I would say, yep, that's a photograph that came out really, really well, and I took that photograph. And so I'm looking at these dogs right here, Wolfie and Milo. Although I always say Milo and Wolfie, that's alphabetical. But it's Wolfie on the left, Milo on the right. And you'll notice how they're both looking in the same direction. They're standing as if posed. But in reality, I know because I've got a photograph before this and a photograph after this where they moved, okay? I just got lucky that they were lined up, they were parallel, they're looking the right direction. Everything worked out on this picture. Now, of course, if you want to get really technical, you could say, Steve, technically speaking, you did kind of crop off Milo's feet there in the front, and perhaps you could have used a little more margin on the left. But quite frankly, you know something? Working with children and animals, you work with what you got, and this picture came out very, very nicely. So somewhere along the line, I realized that I had it blown up, I had it matted, I had it framed. I put it in my office for years. I had it in my office, so clients come in, they look, oh, these are your dogs? Yes, they are. It's Milo and Wolfie. And then, of course, in later years, I said, well, that's the dogs that I had because they passed away. But I had them for quite some time. But it is remarkable. And what to me is most amazing about that is the fact that I got such a great photograph. The first day I had my camera out, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a harbinger of things to come. I'm going to take so many great photographs with this camera. Don't get me wrong, I got some good photographs, but it's one of those curses when you get lucky early on, okay? And I think it was Mark Twain who said that the worst thing that can happen to a young man is he wins his first horse race. Because, of course, you ain't going to win them all, but you kind of feel like you might when you get lucky like that. And so at this point in time, I'm not even sure how that camera was set. I'm not even sure which lens I was using. But, try as I might to replicate that, I never could and I never did. Because like I said, I shot hundreds, if not thousands of photographs of those dogs over the years and never got that photograph again. Nothing like that again. And of course, I jokingly called them brothers. They weren't really brothers. They were not related in any way, shape, or form, other than they're both the same breed. Wolfie was from a breeder in Michigan, and Milo was from a breeder in Ohio. And so, as far as I know, if you were to trace their lineage back, it'd probably go way back. And it's harder to do with dogs than it is for people. So, they were not related in that sense. But of course, they're in the same household, and they acted like siblings the way they behaved. But I can show you some other pictures of them along the way. And like I said, did some road trips with the dogs. A few come to mind. One in particular is later, after Milo had passed away. I had the opportunity to do an interview in North Carolina. And I may have talked about this recently. I don't remember or not how recently I talked about this. But I had someone who could come take care of Wolfie for me when I was out of town, and they weren't available. So Wolfie came with me. And so I found a hotel that said it's okay to have a dog as long as the dog doesn't damage anything. So I drove down to North Carolina, spent the night in a hotel, got up, did the interview, and then drove back and had Wolfie with me the entire time. The only time he was unattended was briefly in my car, parked in the shade, on a cool day. He was fine. Don't worry about it. Don't call the police. But I remember how much he hated the hotel room because it wasn't carpeted. And at the time, lived someplace with a lot of carpeting. And don't get me wrong, he could survive places that weren't carpeted, but it really bothered him that he's walking around click, click, click with his toenails on the motel room floor. And I wound up putting something on the floor for him. And he finally figured that out, and he'd come over and lay down on it. And a few minutes later, he'd get up and he'd click, click, click as he's walking around all upset because he didn't like being in a different place. And I was trying to explain to him that we're doing this for an interview. It wound up being the interview I did about Bobby Isaac for ESPN. And I'll put a link up to that if I can find it on YouTube. I'm pretty sure it's still there. But I'm sitting in the stands at the Hickory Motor Speedway. And talking about Bobby Isaac. And I had just talked to Ned Jarrett a little while earlier that morning. They interviewed him right before they interviewed me. And a very, very nice guy. I'd met him previously. And, of course, the entire time is that Wolfie was there. Not on camera, but he was there. And I remember, for instance, both before and after the interview, going out and finding a nice big field we could walk around in and noticing the clay field was that red, clayish, red dirt they have down there. Very, very different from Michigan. But Wolfie didn't mind being in the car. He'd often just sit in the passenger seat, unlike Milo, who insisted on sitting in my lap, which, of course, is not a safe place for a dog. But we survived. We survived. So there you go. That's the picture of Milo and Wolfie. Like I said, as soon as this video is over, I'm going to put it right back there. So on Sunday, if you look over my shoulder, you can see it. And again, like I said, photographers will understand this. How hard you try to get a picture to come out right. And then once in a while, you take one where you just get lucky. And I understand you can sometimes make your own luck. But the point simply is, so that was a photograph I took the first day I had that camera out. And it was among the first pictures I shot that afternoon. And there it is, framed on my floor, right outside my studio view. And again, like I said, that was shot in 2008. I could do the math. I'm not so busy right now. I'd say about 16 years ago. 16 years ago. Unbelievable. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.